Hello, friends. You are watching another episode of the Green New Perspective podcast, the place where we host people from the clean tech space and give them a chance to introduce us all to their innovative tech aimed at combating climate change. Today, we are going to focus on the renewable energy sector and its challenges like misinformation and grid reliability issues. My guest today is Jaro Nummikoski from a company called Atma Energy, and today we're going to talk about how they're tackling mentioned issues in renewables with transparency, value-driven solar and energy storage solutions. Stay tuned and enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Green New Perspective podcast. Can you introduce yourself and then tell me a bit more about Atma Energy? When were you founded, your mission, and what makes your company unique?
So my name is Jaro Nummikoski. I'm the co-founder and CFO of Atma Energy. My co-founder, Supratim Srinivasan, and we met in grad school in 2012, and we were both working in the industry in solar forecasting. So we were doing our research in solar forecasting, and after we graduated, we both got different job roles in different areas of the solar energy industry. I was working in utility scale solar, so we built large scale solar farms in West Texas, particularly serving the San Antonio market. And my co-founder, Supratim, he was working on the distributed energy side, so mostly in residential and commercial solar. We remained friends, after grad school, and we had many discussions about starting a business. And eventually, in March of 2020, exactly March 16th of 2020, we decided to start this business. And then in March 20th, the entire world shut down for COVID. And so that was a very, interesting start to our business. At that time, we were all remote. We had a few other members of our team. We were all working remote, so it wasn't really that big of a challenge. It was a little bit difficult to reach out to customers. We weren't able to meet with people face to face at that time, so we worked around those challenges. But we started then in 2020, and we've been growing as a business ever since, and doubling in size almost every year. Yeah, that leads us to today.
And what inspired you to focus on providing solar and battery solutions?
So for Super Tim and I, we really wanted to focus on providing value to customers. The value that solar, we know that the value that solar has for customers. It's unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation and just different tactics that are not beneficial to consumers in the solar area. So we wanted to kind of provide a solution and provide a way for consumers to get the best value out of solar and energy storage. So that's kind of what led us to found Atma Energy.
What kind of misinformation?
Oh, that's a good question. So, if you're on, say, any social media website, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those, or mostly in Facebook and those kind of places, you get lots of misinformation about, oh, the government's offering a free solar program, or Texas will buy solar panels for you and put them on your house. That is what the industry is bombarded with, nonstop. The impression that people get about solar often, and that's unfortunate because, obviously that's not true. Nothing's ever free. But there are good government incentives for going solar. That is true, but it is not free. Another challenge is that there are many solar companies that come into the market, and really their primary goal is to gain a bunch of customers in a short period of time and maybe sell off their projects and then close shop, not provide any further service to customers. And so that creates a lot of negativity in the industry from people that have gone solar. So you end up with a lot of people, reviewing solar on various platforms, and they're saying that, solar is not a great investment. I got solar on my house and it's not what I was promised, and all those kind of things. So that kind of just paints this picture of solar being a bad investment or not something you should do. And that's ultimately not true. While it's not necessarily, solar is not necessarily right for everybody, but for those people that have a great roof for it, or, have the correct circumstances, it can be a really good investment. That's our goal as Atma Energy, is to lead people to understanding their needs and what the solar can truly provide for them, and make that a possibility.
Yeah, you mentioned that renewable energy in general has seen growth in recent years. And what major trends are you seeing in solar?
So in solar, I mean, energy has been, I would say pretty mainstream for the last 5 to 10 years. We're of course seeing lots of increases in, panel efficiencies and things like that are making solar more affordable for customers. But I would say one of the biggest trends recently in solar really comes down to energy storage. Here in Texas, back in 2021, we had a large winter storm that knocked out power to a lot of the customers in Texas. It lasted for some people, as long as 4 or 5 days without power. At that point, people realized, that we have some unreliability in our grid. After that, we saw a large spike in energy storage sales, and we really leaned into that heavily after that. After that time, it's always been our intent, but since that time, it's really been a lot easier because that messaging is there. People are wanting resiliency and reliability, and that's something that solar and energy storage can provide. And it does so in a green way. You don't have to have a noisy, polluting generator on the side of your house. Not saying that generators are bad. Generators are serve a great purpose, and for some people, they are absolutely necessary if they want long-term reliability. But for a lot of people, solar and energy storage works really well.
And how has the policy landscape for renewables changed in the recent years, especially in Texas, since that's where you're based? And how does this impact the companies like yours?
No, there haven't been any challenging policies coming up. There have actually been some beneficial ones. In Texas, we have our grid regulator is called ERCOT. And ERCOT recently came out with a program called ADER. Essentially, what the program is, though, it allows solar and battery systems to aggregate, and those aggregated systems to be used to provide services to the grid, like discharging during peak times and that type of thing. So it's something that wasn't really available to smaller energy storage systems before, but that recently came about in the last 2 year and a half. It's been a big help for the industry in terms of how energy storage can be utilized.
Well, you mentioned challenges with miscommunication. So, how do you ensure your company's values are reflected in your marketing and communication efforts? And does that lead to sales?
I think the best answer to that is our company culture. When we make hires right now, because we're still a relatively small organization, we have about 20 25 team members. I'm involved in a lot of the hiring decisions, and we get to see people personally and learn about the justification for wanting to work with us. We have a very very strong company culture here in that we know our mission is to serve customers with the best solutions possible. So we don't necessarily hire people from existing solar energy industry. We like to train people from outside of the industry, and kind of teach them, people that have the same mission as us as humans. We like to train those people in solar energy, and then get them on the same wavelength as us. We have a lot of really good leaders in our company, and they all bought into the same mission statement as our founders. That helps kind of permeate through the organization. By having that company culture existing in the organization, that allows our messaging to come across in a genuine way. And that's really the key point there, is that because this is truly who we are and what we're looking to do, our messaging comes across as genuine and honest. It is challenging, of course, to say, hey, we are honest, trust us. You can't come out and say that on directly. So it has to be in those unspoken things that you do, in the way that you communicate with customers, in the way that you interact with them. We get a lot of praise from our customers after working with them, how communicative we were, and how they just really enjoyed the experience. And making a positive customer experience is really one of our biggest goals.
And how did you come to that you were not actually employing people directly from solar, or at least not all, but doing those types of trainings?
Yes. So the reason we came to that realization is that we dealt with, and we've interviewed a lot of, and we've actually had several people from the solar industry. And I'm not saying that this is pervasive throughout the industry, but particularly on the sales side, there's a lot of money to be made in sales of solar, and therefore people will use many different tactics to make as much money for themselves, and that kind of behavior is not necessarily what we're looking for as a company. I'm not saying that our sales staff does not do well for themselves, but the key is it's not, they're rewarded for providing a great value and an honest transaction to a customer rather than tricking someone into making a decision and then only for that person to later regret their decision. So it's very hard to untrain that behavior from people. Once they've learned something, one way of doing it, it's very hard for us to kind of reverse that. So it's easier to start with people that have the correct behaviors in place and teach them solar aspect. That's kind of the way we've gone about that.
That's an interesting take. We are a marketing agency, as you know, and we do what was being called a sustainable marketing. I guess that's what you've been mentioning. That relies on authenticity and transparency. I mean, that's how you should communicate in clean energy overall. But yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of greenwashing there, not just on the sales side, but on the PR side as well. So yeah, it's important to talk about this.
Right.
Well, I'm glad that you do what you do and that you're trying to change this. I think it's important to mention the impact of marketing value in clean tech communications. With that in mind, how do you see the industry evolving in the next couple of years, and what role will your company play in the future?
So the industry at large, one of the things that's happening in the energy industry or electricity industry, there's we're coming to this shift from the centralized one-way flow of electricity to a more distributed model and a more resilient model. So our goal as a company is to truly to enable the adoption of virtual power plants. So virtual power plants are, the aggregations of many different solar and battery assets, put them, aggregate them together and to serve a purpose for the grid. As a company, we are looking to provide this service to utilities to be kind of a turnkey provider for virtual power plants. And so we do this by working with consumers and with utilities and kind of bringing them together to make this product whole. The industry in general has kind of this us versus them mentality when it comes to solar, us being the consumer and them being the utility. It's always kind of a antagonistic relationship, saying that the utilities charging, raising your electricity rates, you should go solar to combat that, get off the grid completely. Whereas we see the actual benefit being so much larger if you can provide solutions that kind of bridge the gap between the consumer and the utility.
Are there any exciting partnerships, projects, announcements on the horizon for Atma Energy?
So recently in November, we just announced our first virtual power plant program with a cooperative, electric cooperative that's here nearby in San Antonio. It's a 1 megawatt pilot program. It's about 90 homes that are participating in the program. So essentially, it's a homeowner that's interested in solar, and they have an energy storage system that is placed at their home that they subscribe to, and this battery is utilized by the utility most of the time, most of the year, whenever there's a need for the utility, say to support the grid. And then if there's ever an outage, then the battery is utilized by the homeowner to provide backup. So it's kind of a win-win scenario for the utility and the homeowner, where the utility is getting the value out of the battery most of the time, and instead of the battery just sitting there at the customer's home just waiting for an outage event. So the utility gets to utilize it and the homeowner gets to utilize it whenever there's an outage. And therefore you're kind of, everybody wins in that scenario. So we recently started this one in November. We're still enrolling participants into the program and getting those assets built. We'll look to probably complete that by the end of this year. That's one that we actually have in operation. And we have a few other ongoing conversations to build much larger virtual power plants. We're excited to, make an announcement here in the next couple months about something much larger. Kind of the next steps. But as I mentioned, virtual power plants, being a turnkey provider of virtual power plants is kind of what we're really driving for as a business, because we believe it has the largest impact to the state.
And are there any innovations in battery tech that you are excited about looking ahead?
In battery technology, yes. I mean, since I mentioned that the winter storm that happened in 21, there have been a lot of new entrants to the battery technology industry. Right now, everything is more based on short duration energy storage, lithium chemistry batteries. They all have similarities, and some are a little bit safer, some are a little bit more energy dense. I think as we go forward in the next few years, 5 years maybe, there's going to be some major advancements. It's kind of what happened in the solar energy industry, where as more entrants came into the business and started making manufacturing panels, they get better and better at it. Technologies improve, and you kind of start improving by leaps and bounds. With energy storage, we're where solar was about 15 years ago, so where we'll start seeing a significant ramp here in the near future. And I think long-term energy storage is something that's still kind of elusive right now, but I think we'll see some technologies that kind of rise to the top that'll provide much more solutions, than what we currently have.
Well, we're coming to the end of our conversation here, and one of my last questions for you is, what advice would you give to someone looking to enter the renewable energy industry today, based on your experience?
The industry is where it's got a lot of upward trajectory still. So for the next foreseeable future, renewables are going to take a larger portion of the electric share in the U.S. I think in the world in general. So there's a lot of opportunities in terms of advice. I think. Being in it for the right reasons, providing the value to utilities and making sure that you're doing it for more than just a quick buck is key, and looking for building something that's going to last for long term, because I think the companies that you'll see starting in the next few years will be hopefully some of those will be the large ones that talk about 20, 30 years from now that kind of stuck around and really made a significant change in the industry.
And if someone wants to educate themselves on renewables, maybe join some Slack channels, LinkedIn groups, communities, do you have some recommendations? And of course, tell our audience where they can find you on socials if they want to DM you, ask you some questions.
One of my favorite ways is using LinkedIn, following various leaders in the market, that are leading the largest companies in the industry, and following the posts that they make. They're often kind of providing the most current news in the industry. That's one of my favorite sources for news and information in the industry. There are many different resources, many different conferences that take place around the country all year. That can also be a good source of knowledge. I mean, I've been in the industry for 15 years now, so it's something that you accumulate knowledge over time. So there's a lot of information to be had. Don't try to learn it all at once, but find something that excites you, and grab onto that and keep learning. Yes.
Where they can find you?
Oh, yes. To learn more about us, you can visit us at atma-energy.com. That's our website. And we have some good resources for homeowners, and just learn a little bit more about who we are as a company.
Well, thank you, Jaro, for being my guest here on the Green New Perspective podcast. And I wish you all the luck with the beautiful project that you mentioned that you had going on later this year.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, this is the end of this conversation with Jaro Nummikoski from Atma Energy, and the end of this episode of the Green New Perspective podcast. And of course, this is the perfect time for me to introduce you to our sponsors. Their New Perspective, a Boston-based digital marketing agency working with cleantech clients only. And if you want to see what services they provide to help your business grow, please check out the info in the description of this episode. And if you want to support our efforts here at the Green New Perspective podcast, please consider subscribing to our channel on your favorite streaming platform. We are everywhere, so it's easy for you to subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation, and if you did, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!